Everybody, and welcome to Steam Feed TV, episode 12. This is standalone, not 11 or 11.1. This is an actual Steam Feed. We're a little bit late just because we were having the greatest conversation in the green room, and sometimes I think it would be really cool to actually have some cameras on during the green room conversations because we get into some great conversations. But I want to welcome everybody, and we have a fill-in, Dorian. Then, hold on, I got to get your name right.
Dorian Morin.
Morin Van Dam.
I
have to get those names right because Jeff Howell could not be with us tonight, and I hope Jeff has a good evening. He will be missed, of course. But tonight we're going to be talking about some interesting stuff. And, of course, we cannot not talk about the launch of the Apple Watch and the Apple, the i6 and the i6 Plus, which I looked at the dimensions. The i6 Plus is just a hair. I believe it's 5.5 for their screen, and the Galaxy Note 3 is 5.7, so it's almost the same thing. So that was very interesting to me. But we're gonna be talking about it in a different way because when these conversations come up, it always turns into a Apple v Android kind of bitch session, and that's not where we want to go. I think what is the bigger discussion here is technology is moving, and the devices that are coming out are just really going at lightning speed. And now we're talking about wearables, whether it be the watch, whether it be the Google Glass, or some of the others that are coming out with wearable, facial things. Everybody has a watch out. So my question to the panel is, what's your opinion? Do you think that these wearables are going to, and I'm not talking about folks like us that are on the panel that are fairly deeply engulfed in this stuff. I'm talking about the average Joe and the average Mary that are living their lives. Are they going to put down their phone and go for these wearables? Jump in, folks.
I say yes. You go first.
No, you go. Go ahead.
I say yes. I say that if they come out with something that I can put on in the morning when, say I'm wearing a dress and I don't want to have a purse with me and I'm busy, I'm running in the car, I'm busy running my business, busy being a mom, that would be amazing to have. Absolutely. Especially if it also becomes affordable.
So affordability is important to you.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, I think I'm not as focused on watching.
Somebody, just a minute. Somebody's got the reverb.
I heard you check out.
I know. It feels like we're in space.
Does that work?
Yes. Does it work?
No.
Is the echo gone?
Okay, do this. Everybody except Jerry mute themselves. And then Jerry, you bring everybody on one at a time and talk to them.
All right, Randy.
Hello?
Hello? Okay, I'm not hearing any echo now. Jennifer?
Yep.
Greg?
Hello?
And Doreen?
Hello?
Is anybody hearing an echo now?
Sounds good to me now.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Back to Jennifer.
All right.
Go, Jennifer.
Very dramatic. I like that. I like the watch, obviously, for many different reasons. But what I like about it more is its forward progression on wearables. So whether this is the product that goes mainstream or it's the next generation or the generation after that is kind of irrelevant to me. It's that the fact that I think it's moving forward, and I think we are going to see that progression. It may not be this first generation watch, but just like the first time I saw an iPad, I got the concept of tablets, and that I was a person who was walking around with my laptop all the time, trying to hold it and stream something and put away the dishes. And as soon as I saw a tablet, I thought, oh, that changes everything. And I had that same sort of feeling when I watched this because I think, like Doreen said, I don't want to have to haul around. I don't want to have to pull up my phone all the time. I would love to be able to just look down and be able to see stuff. So I think there is going to be some adoption of that And I think it's great to see that moving forward. In addition to glass and other things that we're seeing, I think it gives them a better chance of going mainstream.
Let me ask you this: do you use your tablet as much as you thought you would?
I use my tablet all day, every day.
The reason I brought that up was just last evening on Steam Feed Radio, we talked about that, and we talked about how all three of us that were on the panel thought we were going to be using our tablets a lot, and none of us did. So we went back to our phones. So that's the only reason that question came up. So Greg,
You use a computer?
Well, I'm either on my phone, on my glass, or on my desktop. And my desktop.
I don't use a real computer anymore. I use my tablet only. So it's not, for me, it's not between phone or tablet. It's between tablet or computer. That was the shift for me.
Yeah, for me, the desktop has to happen. In fact, because I do so much video stuff, that it has to be. I can't do that. The software I have to run would never work. But that's the only reason for that. But Greg, Randy, jump in.
Good, Randy.
Okay. I think I agree with Jennifer. I don't know that I'm not a watch wearer, and I'm not into the Google Glass thing, so I'm not really there. I'm very much a phone fanatic. I like my iPhone, and I will be upgrading to the iPhone 6, not the 6 Plus, but because I do have an iPad. I don't want to carry this big device around. I think I want the thing in my hand, be able to slide it in my back pocket, but I'm tethered to that phone all the time. If the phone, as Jennifer said, I like the forward progression of the phone. I think maybe when the original phones that came out last year kind of launched, maybe they were a little bit ahead of curve. I think people view Apple as kind of a trendsetter, be it whatever, about the argument thing that you were talking about. They are a trendsetter in form and design, and they have something that they push. So whether this phone becomes mainstream, and I'd be willing to bet that it does not. It'll probably be sold and it'll probably work. I just don't think it will. When they get the device that you can put on your arm or clip somewhere on you without being on your face or so intrusive, and you can make telephone calls and you can make reservations and things like that from that device, and the price is always important.
Right.
And that there is a differentiation between people who like Apple versus what other products out there, but I think it will become mainstream.
So I'm not actually torn at all. I think the watch as it stands now, it will not, from what I could see, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I can, as a person who runs or used to run a lot more often, but I do work out, and I see a lot of the fitness wearables and things like that becoming more and more mainstream in the fitness industry. I could imagine as a runner, it would be cool to have my like a phone on my watch, as well as my music on my watch, and have my odometer and maybe even a map application and things like that all on my watch, instead of carrying, instead of having a map and then an odometer in multiple different devices, carrying a Walkman or Discman, that when I used to do that. The thing I see with the watch, and it was kind of when Doreen was talking about it. I mean, I'm married to a fairly fashion-conscious wife, and I could just imagine, like, I don't wear a watch, and I can imagine that I can't imagine her ever wearing that watch, because it would never look right with anything that she wears. Just from a sheer fashion sense, take the technology out of it, take the bells and whistles out of it. It's just from what I see her wearing and how I see her using a quote-unquote watch or bracelet and things like that. I can't imagine her ever putting that on. It just won't match what she wears. And I don't know if a lot of I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine, like, if you have, even in a business setting, if I have if you're talking to the CEO of a company, and they have a an expensive suit on? Are they going to wear their Rolex because it complements their suit, or are they going to wear their Apple Watch? I just don't know. I don't know, and I guess like that's sort of what I'm envisioning.
Let me throw something out to the panel, because in my mind, I think whether it's a wearable on your face, whether it's a wearable on your wrist, I think the hurdle that they have to come up with is that they have to be able to separate it from the phone. Once they can get to where the phone is, it doesn't have to be tethered through the Bluetooth on the phone. That's when they're going to see success.
Yeah, but Greg brings up
I don't think so at all. I think it's more about how does it look when I'm wearing it.
Greg brings up the most important point. Now, there you got to look at the geek factor. Goes, hey, I'm not worried about that.
Right.
But Greg, he mentions his. My wife wouldn't do that. She's in the same boat.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. I'm not a watch wearer.
I wouldn't wear it either. I mean,
and throw in the Google Glass. Think of that. You go to some formal dinner and you're sitting there. Now, there's nothing wrong with you having sitting your phone, be a whatever phone, setting your phone there and looking at it, because they're kind of an accepted accessory, and you can stash them away in your pocket or in your purse, right? But something that's attached to your body, a jewelry piece, an eyewear piece. It's got to be.
From the ladies.
You can make it look like a watch. I mean, that's the thing. It's got a leather band, or it's got a chain link band, and you can have it set to a watch face, and it looks like a watch. But I take out my phone most often to see what time it is. So in essence, it makes a lot more sense to have something that's buzzing on my wrist and is basically tapping me and saying, you have a meeting you need to go to for 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, I don't have to break eye contact with the person that I'm having coffee with. I can glance down at my watch. I can see what time it is. I can get a map that's telling me where to go next. And I don't have to. That doesn't. A lot of what people complain about with phones is I have to. People are constantly doing this. And what I like about the watch is we're already used to people doing this action. With the Google Glass, it's a little bit weirder because people aren't used to people getting other stimulus.
Yeah, I don't even have to glance down at my watch. I can just glance up and you won't even.
It's a natural thing, and I think it can look undercover. It looks like a watch, and we're used to things that look like a watch. And so for me, the tethering is a big deal, because if I didn't have to tether, I wouldn't have a phone. I would just have the watch.
Right.
Jerry, didn't you at one time work for Texas Instruments? Didn't
yes.
you? Yeah, and wasn't Texas Instrument the first one that came out with the calculator watch? Remember that?
Yeah, they came out.
It was kind of a Dick Tracy looking thing, and they built it that way. But it was really only adapted. The people that picked it up were the real true geeks that were into that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's a market, but as far as going mainstream, that's I agree with Greg on that.
Doreen, jump in.
Well, I mean, I'm in my 40s, and I'm beyond what I care what it looks like. I need functionality. I have 4 kids. I run a business. I have 3 big dogs. I'm out running. I'm out walking. I'm in the car, out of the car. I'm at my computer. I'm cooking dinner. All of this in a span of a few hours. I just want that thing on me. I can't tell you how many times I misplace it. Like I said earlier, if I wear a dress, there is nowhere to put it. I don't want to put it in my bra. I don't want to put it on the counter because I'm going to forget. Where am I going to put this thing? And I want it with me, just like you guys can put it in your pocket.
It comes to tethering to the phone, though.
Yeah, well, if it wasn't like...
That's inevitable that's going to stop. I mean, already at cars that have Wi-Fi embedded in the cars. I mean, that's what we're talking about, the progression. I think.
Right. So if it was a phone, if the phone was a watch, and it would be permanently a watch, and it wasn't tethered to anything, I would be the first one to get it. I would be super excited, because then it would be on me and I wouldn't lose it. I would put it on in the morning, and I would have it with me wherever I go. It would be great. I mean, I would, for somebody like me, then I can say right now I wouldn't care what it looked like, but it would just be wonderful. Where I work, I work from home, but to have that with me everywhere I go and whatever I do, and not have to worry, is it in my pocket, is it in my pocketbook, did I leave it in the car, did I leave it next to the stove? I mean, it gets lost all the time. And so, yeah, I absolutely would do that. For me right now, glass has not been attainable. It's just a huge expense for me that I haven't been wanting, that I haven't wanted to make an investment in. And so if that was available, I absolutely would go for that. And I would think that that might be something that there would be a whole group of, especially women, busy moms, even young moms, that would definitely go for that, that they can have their phone on them and still watch their kids at the playground, you know, and not have to be looking around for their phone, but have it and feel secure that they have it.
Well, I think
that's my take.
You know, out of the whole thing, I think what I end up looking at is I'm really anxious to meet Greg's wife while he's sitting there in this T-shirt telling me that his wife is fashionista. I mean,
I wouldn't call her that. I would just call her. She's just conscious.
Fashion conscious,
Yeah.
and that's a yeah. I mean, I'm obviously being a wise guy. I mean, my wife is the same way. I mean, my wife doesn't. She's not a techie or in that world at all. So, and in fact, my son, who's 32 years old, has yet to buy a cell phone. So, I mean, my family is kind of a contradiction in terms. You know what I mean?
Hey, Jerry, let me just pick up on something that was mentioned in that last little banner of conversation, and that Jennifer mentioned about, it's in line to come with the advances with this watch or wearable or whatever. But when you start thinking about technology and where we are today, a lot of times we overlook something. And she mentioned cars. I mean, when you start thinking about, what's happening today, think of what's going on in automobiles today, and the technology that is being incorporated in these new vehicles that are put on the market. I mean, they can self-brake, they can self-drive. GM just announced that you'll be able to turn loose of the steering wheel on interstate driving by 2015 and stuff like that. Those technologies are wonderful aspects. With them is going to come some kind of glitches and problems, but it's coming because we can do it and we're asking for it. So I see the watch and Apple responding to a demand out there. Is the demand as big as what Apple or what Android or what HTC, whatever these brands really wants?
You know what's kind of funny is that at some point somebody just said, I feel like somebody said wearables are the future, and then we started an entire industry on creating wearables, and I like it kind of
Google's fault.
It kind of went backwards. There was never really a demand for this.
Well,
I don't know, Greg. Dick Tracy had those wearables,
but there wasn't like this.
Really quick, I want to go to the next subject.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Really quick. The reason why Google came out with Google Glass, and I got this from Elliot Nix, who's the head of Google East Coast. Mobile East Coast, is the reason why they came up with this has come up by the failure team, is that they realized that a generation of people and the next generations were going to be looking down at their phone. What they came up with Google Glass was so that you could still be connected but have eye contact with the people you're talking to. Mm-hmm. And it does make a difference, but that will be a whole other subject.
Yeah.
I want to go on to this next subject, which I think is really interesting. And Jennifer, thank you for bringing this subject to my attention. I think it's a great subject. We're now talking about things about wearables. We're talking about cars that are parking themselves, that are doing things themselves. We're all living our personal lives on a completely different technology level. Yet when you look at where corporate America is, the silos are still there. The marketing programs are pretty much, for the most part, in the same boat as they always have been. And like Jennifer said, let's put an ad on that. I think where is that? It seems to be a widening gap, and what is that? What's going to be the consequences when that gap gets so wide that we're living our lives on such a technical plane, and corporate America is still going to meetings and putting out printed reports? Anybody just jump in, because I think that I'm going to be thinking about that one for more than a week.
I can jump in real quick. I have 3 teenagers, okay? They're 14, 16, and 17 now. Very soon, in the next 10 years, all 4 of them will be in the workforce. All 4 of them will know more than I know. So what I'm saying is that gap is there, and it's getting wider right now, but what's going to happen is they're going to enter the workforce. This whole generation that has grown up with iPads in their hand, iPhones in their hand since they were 2, 3, 4 years old, that know more about technology than we do. When they enter they're all teenagers now. When they enter the workforce, there's going to be a whole generation of people that are going to be pushed out. That's what I'm seeing. It's either jump in or they're going to be pushed out and they're going to go with early retirement. They're going to know, they're only going to know to work. My high school children, my 3 teenagers in high school, all of them got a Dell laptop right at the beginning of school. The whole school, 1,200 children, are now functioning on laptops, all of it. Apps, they're learning Google Calendar in school. They're, everything is digital. And they're going to take that to college, and then they're going to take that into the workplace. So, yes, the gap is widening right now, but my thought is that when they enter the workforce, say the next 10, 15 years, it's going to be a whole different ballgame. So I see your concern, but I also see an end there happening. And whether that's good for people like us or not, that's, you know,
Jennifer,
that's
why
to be
don't you
seen.
jump in and kind of give us this is kind of your, I love this. This was a great thing that you brought up. Give us your take on this whole thing, if you would.
Well, I've been feeling a little bit like Chicken Little for the last 5 years because I'm watching the speed at which technology is increasing and the access and how much my life has changed in 5 years, and yet I'm still in marketing departments where they're saying, "Do you think we should respond to that tweet?" And the amount of lag and the amount of time it takes to do anything that's not even innovative, just to like respond to a tweet. It's so cosmically slow that there's just no way that they can keep up. So like Doreen's saying, maybe there's natural selection that just happens, and Brian Solis calls that digital Darwinism, that these companies are just going to all go out.
I love that. That's good.
And I think that that's probably true because I just see this gap getting wider and wider, and I don't know from a consultant's standpoint what more I can do to make this point to companies that you need to be moving much, much faster. And also when I was looking at the watch, I thought, I have all these companies who are thinking we should get into mobile. And I'm thinking, wow, I mean, mobile has gotten into you twice while you were just thinking about getting into mobile. And it's like the gap is so huge now, I just don't know how those companies can ever get back on it. I don't know. Maybe they can, but I don't really know how to help them bridge that gap because they refuse to drastically change how they operate. I think that's necessary.
I think I think Doreen and Jennifer too. It's a generational thing. I mean, corporations are the way they are, and it's an evolving thing. Like Doreen mentioned, her children once they enter the workforce, well, they'll enter the workforce as juniors and move up. And as they move up, those technologies will be, phased in and things. I mean, I'm of the age that I remember getting a computer set on my desk. I remember a computer that was looked like a linotype type thing. I remember getting our department getting 2 pagers and we had to share it on like you got it this day and that day, and then bag phones. I remember all that stuff. It's a progression thing. That same department today has smartphones, Apples, and Macs sitting on their desk. It's a progression thing that'll happen, but it's a generational thing, and that's a natural thing. I would be curious to know when we start talking about companies that are not there, that don't get it, that are going to be dinosaurs. What kind of companies are you talking about? I'm just curious about that.
I would say, most companies that I encounter, you talk about, like, some large corporations have war rooms, like social media war rooms, right? But largely what they're doing, a lot of them, is listening. They're not necessarily talking. They don't have the power to talk. Actually, the larger the corporation, the more hoops they have to jump through to actually do stuff or to innovate. So you have smaller companies that are innovating and taking risks, but it doesn't really make an impact. And you have larger companies that are too hampered down to take those risks. And I think, combined, it's just not a lot of forward momentum. And a lot of companies are still being based on this industrialized model that we've had for the last 100 years it's out of date. And Seth Godin likes to talk about that all the time. We are in a new age where information passes in new ways, and we need to organize information in people and systems. We're not so much selling widgets anymore. Those are created in China. We don't necessarily do that as a company. We sell ideas and communicate those ideas on the internet. And yet we still are like, well, let's have a committee meeting and talk about that thing and make a paper and we're going to have a report.
Yeah, Jennifer, I understand that. And one thing that comes to mind, or the business cycle that comes to mind to me, is the news media. And what happened? Okay, you know, newspapers and traditional news medias were slow to adopt the internet. They got left behind. They lost it. You know, the genie's out of the bottle. But what rose from that is junk going out and people grabbing hold of junk, unsubstantiated reports, and how the internet thing. So there again, that comes back to, yeah, there's changes, but what about the validity of those changes? How is that going to impact our society as a whole going forward?
I don't think necessarily positively. I mean, you're talking about like the collaborative economy, that hotels are going out of business because, you know, you can do Airbnb or whatever, and you can, you know, taxis are going out of business because of Uber. So there's these startups that are revolutionizing because they can just say, I'm going to bring this to market now, and I'm going to disrupt, and that's great. But is that necessarily better for us all? I maybe think kind of the jury's out if that's going to be better for society.
Greg, what's going through your mind, Greg? You've been quiet over there.
I don't think that it's. I don't
you gotta
know.
say something, bud.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know that we're going to be pushing people towards early retirement, and only because of, and maybe I'm wrong, but like Randy said, like the average, let's say, senior leadership in a company of $20 million plus is probably they're probably going to be in their 40s and 50s, and like
if you hadn't made it by 40, you're not going to make it.
What's that?
If you hadn't made it by 40, you're not
exactly.
Gonna make it.
So if you're not as a C-suite by 40, you're probably not going to make it. And those guys are already entrenched in their ways. And so you have, and maybe at some point Doreen's kids will eventually I have no doubt that Doreen's kids and their generation will phase in the new technology. But I don't think it's going to be like snap. We're going to kick these guys out because they got 20 more years left of work. Give or take.
You got a lot more money.
And so what happens is we're not like it's there are startups that are coming alive and there are people getting companies, but there have always been startups and there have always been innovations and industries are always going to come and go and offer new technologies and things like that. That'll never change. But I don't know if like the average person in an industry isn't looking to. They're competing with people who are just like them. So the 40-year-old in company X is competing with the 40-year-old in company Y, who's competing with the 40-year-old in company Z. You know, there's not like, and then you have the startup from the 25-year-old who comes in and disrupts things and blah blah blah. But those companies generally still exist because they create great products or whatever. I mean, some die out, but
there's more die out now than there has been in the past. It's speeding up because there used to be companies that were around for 50, 60 years, and now we've got, you know, Circuit City goes in the toilet, you know, Borders goes in the toilet.
Right, but
companies, like half of them go in the toilet within 2 years.
But that's an entire industry.
But this is
but that took 20 years. Amazon got started in what, 96?
Yeah, and you mentioned that, Jennifer. What put those particular businesses in the toilet the same as newspaper? They, you know, now I buy everything online, right? If I go to a Best Buy, it's like I really want to put my hands on that before I make the purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were scared to jump. It was time to jump, and nobody wanted to.
But I guess I'm not debating the fact that it won't happen. I'm debating the fact that it'll happen instantaneously. Right. I think that it took the retail industry and I don't know if it's entirely died out. It has shifted. It has changed. Don't get me wrong, but it took 20 years.
But because of dynamics in today's world, I don't think it's going to take as long as it took for those businesses. I think it's going to happen quicker. I don't think it'll happen instantaneously, but I think it'll happen quicker.
It might.
You know. Well, that's the best part about it. We don't know. We're all sitting here, you know. That's the best part. Who knows what's going to come out of left field?
No, I think we do know, because I think all of us on this panel know that nowadays we want stuff when we want it, the way we want it, as fast as possible, and delivered in the way we want it. That's how we live our lives, and we are expecting that of our company.
Correct, but Jennifer, you kind of opened this up about, is this company responding to a tweet, or because I could use my, because I use my iPad tablet versus, you know, more often than Randy maybe uses his iPad tablet or whatever.
I'm talking about like culturally within a company.
Jennifer brings up a good point because one of the
but that's a business model shift, not a simple responding faster.
Our culture is saying that we want to order it at 8 o'clock in the morning and we want it delivered by 6.
I'll take it the next day, but I want it the next day, and I want it right, and I want it at the cheapest price.
I was going to say, I'll take it at 2 to 3 days if I get free shipping.
I ordered from a company for my audio and video and a whole bunch of equipment, and one of the things that I always love about them is you order it, and within 2 days, 3 days tops, it's here, and it's you know what I mean. It's the real deal. It's not some knockoff made in China.
But there again, that comes back to a generational thing. Take Doreen's kids for example. They're growing up knowing that. We are discovering that. Okay, so I can sit in the chair with the girls cutting my hair or give me a shampoo, and I can order something from Amazon while I'm sitting there listening to her talk, and I can say, hey, I need to get this, boom, and order it, and I can get a confirmation back before I get my hair cut.
Mm-hmm.
That's a learning thing that people in my demographic not all are embracing, but Doreen's children, now I'm excluding us on the panel because we're in that space, but Doreen's children are growing up knowing that. Whereas a kid, when I was Doreen's children's age, I was still going to the mall and hanging out at the record store and buying cassette tapes, right?
Mm-hmm. I was too.
Yeah. Well, hey, we are out of time, folks. So this was a great discussion. I think this is the kind of stuff I really enjoy. So I want to thank everybody for being here and taking the time out of your personal life for being on here and giving your opinions and not being afraid to give your opinions. I really appreciate that. So you all have a good evening, and I will talk to you. We're not going to have a show until October. I'm going to be on vacation. So after the show, I will, if you guys could hold on for about 5 minutes, I just want to give you a couple of pieces of information.
All right, thanks.
Sounds good.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
For joining us.